Back for another one of our studies today in Psalms. Today we're looking at Psalm 27. This is the first of two studies on Psalm 27. So follow along as I read. The Lord is my light and my salvation. Whom shall I fear? The Lord is the stronghold of my life. Of whom shall I be afraid? When the wicked advance against me to devour me, it is my enemies and my foes who will stumble and fall. Though an army besiege me, my heart will not fear. Though war break out against me, even then I will be confident. One thing I ask from the Lord, this only do I seek, that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. For in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. Then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me. At his sacred tent, I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. Well, this background of this psalm is interesting. Of course, we all know the story of David and Goliath. It's very famous. We learned as children, and then, of course, we repeat it. We use it for sermons. A lot of sermons, I think, on David and Goliath. But not so much on 2 Samuel 21, 16, and 17, where we are told that David met another giant, but this time things did not go so well. In fact, he was almost killed, and Abishai had to come to his rescue. Now, I have a picture on the screen of this. It's not a very good one, but it's the only one I could find on that incident. Now, David was a bit older by this time, and his advisors said to him, look, you can't be going into battle anymore. You're getting too old for this, and you're going to be killed, and we'll be in a really bad place if we lose you. So this psalm was written by someone who was a seasoned veteran who knew both what it was to be in danger and to enjoy God's protection. So that's the background going into Psalm 27. The first three verses, it says, as we just read, the Lord is my light and my salvation, the wonderful beginning of the psalm. And of course, it talks about the Lord being our light, especially in the way that David is using it. It means that the Lord shows us the dangers that are in our way. He reveals what's there for us. And of course, he reveals things for us in our hearts and our minds so that we know him better. And he talks about him being a salvation. Now, again, it's salvation as we would normally think of it, like salvation from sin. But also in this instance, it is rescuing him from certain harm. So there is a salvation of the heart, if you will, and the salvation of the whole body, if you will. So because of that, if the Lord is my light and my salvation, if that's who's protecting me, I have nothing or no one to be afraid of. Whom shall I fear? He also talks about the Lord being the stronghold of his life. And I have a picture of a stronghold here. They would have these in different places, and they were stationed around, and sometimes they would have people who were stationed in these places, but a lot of times they were just there, and they would be in them. There would be weapons. There would be water and food, and if somebody was caught out in an open place, like suppose there was a marauding band or something coming through, they could run into these towers and be safe and barricade themselves in and fight back if they needed to. So they were really very important, like little arsenals. So that meant that when he says the Lord is a stronghold of my life, it is saying in essence that he is a safe place for me, and my enemy can't reach me there. Now, that's important spiritually as well as physically, as David was talking about it here, but also spiritually, he was talking about it because we have an enemy of our souls, and if we're in the Lord, that enemy can't reach us. As long as we're in our relationship with the Lord, the enemy of our souls cannot reach us. And so it's a place of God's protection. And because of that, we say, of whom shall I be afraid? There's nothing, no one or anyone. He talks about in the second verse about the wicked advanced against me. They were the ones who fell. And this is a wonderful picture of here's an invading army, and they thought they were going to get me, but instead they fell into a trap. We think about what happened in our world back 75, 80 years ago with the rise of Germany and Japan invading all around, and they set down their rules, and all of the enemy overran all the armies and so on. But it turned out that the tables turned, and they were the ones who were surrendering. They were the ones who found themselves far from home and not able to win. And so he's saying, my enemies attack me, but here, look, God flipped it over so that I was victorious, and they're the ones who fell. So we need to remember that though our enemies may be around us, God is greater than our enemies, and he can help us defeat them and be victorious over them. Now, it's not necessary that we want to see them destroyed, but that they cannot win over us. Well, fear sometimes returns, and we get to the fourth verse, and we see this where kind of there's some nervousness that comes. He says, I need to think about where I can go. Where can I go for safety? And he talks about going into the house of the Lord. Let's just talk for a moment about being afraid. Christians are like everybody else. We have things that make us afraid, things that make us concerned. We have financial problems. We have problems with our children or our parents, or we have problems with coworkers. We have times when our health doesn't work out well for us. And those things can be upsetting and concerning. We feel that like anybody else does. And if you have somebody who one day finds out they have cancer and they're talking about, they're singing their songs and all this kind of stuff and everything's wonderful and beautiful. Well, maybe it is, but they also have the concern of the cancer. We also think that person who doesn't seem to care or not going to do anything about it be a little bit off. And they are, because again, we are to take care of it, and we do feel what everyone else does. And frankly, folks, if we can't feel those concerns like everybody else in the world, how are we going to relate to them and their problems? I mean, we can't. A lot of times where we relate to people is in the area of need. So that if I personally am a cancer survivor, so if there's an unbeliever who's going through cancer, I can talk to them about that because we have that in common. I suffered with that. They're suffering with that. Then we have that common place to meet. And from there, we can move on to other conversations. Well, even though David had been delivered from the Lord in the past, he still had some fear. He still felt he needed the Lord's protection, and he sought him once again for deliverance. So he sought the Lord in his sanctuary. That's really quite a beautiful idea. And sometimes in this respect, he would have been talking about the tent of meeting, the tabernacle, that he would go there. He said, one thing I have desired is that I may dwell in the house of the Lord all the days of my life, to gaze on the beauty of the Lord and to seek him in his temple. So he talks about this. You think about this. He says, of all the things that during times like this I desire, this is the one thing. Now, we think about children. We're coming to the Christmas season, and we have children in our home, and they want everything. They've given us a very long list of things they want. But my wife and I have trouble telling each other what we want for Christmas because we really don't want anything. With maturity, you want less. And so it is. David, with maturity, is saying, there's only one thing I've desired. I have all the things a king could want. But as I look at my life now, one thing I've desired, that I may dwell in the presence of the Lord. In God's presence, I can understand my life. In God's presence, I can always feel safe and feel like the Lord is taking care of me. He talks about being hidden away with God. And aren't there times when we'd like to just be hidden away, where we'd like to be away from all the things that are going wrong, to be tucked away, if you will, and to be protected? And he says, sometimes I can't face the world. I need to retreat. And so hide me in your tent where no one else can find me. The most private part of that. It says in the 5th verse, for in the day of trouble, he will keep me safe in his dwelling. He will hide me in the shelter of his sacred tent and set me high upon a rock. He's going to put me in the place where I'm most protected, and where then, after being protected, I can go out and face my enemies. Well, and what's the response? he wants to now realizing God has protected him. In the 6th verse, then my head will be exalted above the enemies who surround me, and at his sacred tent I will sacrifice with shouts of joy. I will sing and make music to the Lord. So I was besieged by the enemy, but the Lord got me through that. And as a result, I am so very grateful to God that I want to sing of his power, to sing of his deliverance, and to give him praise and glory. Well, that's where we're going to stop today with this psalm. Where are you? Maybe you're at a place where you need to be hidden away, where you need to feel God's protection. Maybe you're at a place where you feel confused. Listen, the Lord will protect you. The Lord will hide you away in his sacred place, in his sanctuary. That may be actually in a physical place or in a place in your heart, but he will take care of you. He promises that he will. Next week, we'll continue this and see what else David has to say. But remember, even though you've been on the way a long time, like David was, there's still times when you're fearful, and still times when things are not going right. But God can and will protect you and get you through. Take that with you through this week. God bless you.